scheduled streaming. We have one scheduled for tomorrow where we're going to be doing some sequencing on Hamilton. And I was working last night coming up with some cool ideas and effects to use in that session. But today, what I wanted to go over was the layout. I wanted to give a tour of my 2021 layout, just give people a feel for it. And I've tried to improve my notes because I also tend to publish the sequences I make for free so that people can download them. But my layout has been confusing in the past. So I went through quite a bit of work since 2020 Christmas to make the layout a little bit more intuitive and also easier to use. Not just for myself, but for the people that like to import the sequences, but also for my daughter, who also tends to do some sequences for the show. She did some really nice sequence this year, or some caramel Diessen something thing. Anyway, something that sounded good to a young ear. Actually, I like the song, and I like all the rainbow colors, of course. And she also did the Snow Miser. And then, my other daughter's shown interest in a couple of songs. Grandma got run over by a reindeer and things like that. So I want to make it so that the layout is a little bit more intuitive, right? Um, so first of all, one of the problems I had is that a lot of my channels were still carryovers from the old Lightorama days, and so I had all sorts of mixed and matched naming conventions for the snowflakes. So I went through and I renamed almost every single thing. So basically, anything that's a bush is now called a bush, and I came up with a naming convention. These are the bushes in the back. These are the bushes in the front, side bushes, and I also, made sure I gave all the deers names. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen, and of course Rudolph. And I also have Rudolph's red nose, which is right there. It is the only incandescent bulb in the entire display. So Rudolph's red nose is a red C9. I've always had red C9s in my display, and now it's just down to one. Um, all the icicles, I came up with a common naming convention, and what I do with the icicles is I have submodels where the top row of the icicle lights actually has a C9 cover on it, and I make those an outline. So I call this an outline. I call what's going around the yard an outline, and these top bulbs of the eaves also an outline. That way we have that all grouped up. The two trees in the front, I call those mega trees just because if somebody's importing a sequence from one of my sequences, this is the stuff they'll want to put on their mega trees. And really, I followed a mega tree pattern. Now, in my display, these aren't actually mega trees; these are spheres, right? And I configured the spheres to have the northern and southern latitudes so that they are kind of standing up. Same thing here with the tiered bushes. So this is something new this year. The tiered bushes are each going to get 13 pixel strips with 50 each. And if you look at this closely, see they have the little round balls there. They're those fancy tiered bushes that the builder put in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of cinch in the middle. I'm going to cinch them in. Of course, there's no good way to represent that. But in X-Lights, the fidelity, you want to be able to capture the effects, but it doesn't need to be perfect fidelity. So what I'll do is I'll cinch them in at the trunks, and then as they get older, we'll just let them out, just like, pants on older folks. But yeah, that's one of the changes for 2021. The other one that changes for 2021 is more snowflakes. So here I've added eight 16-inch snowflakes. And then under these awnings, I noticed I had some dark spots because if you look at it from the viewing angle, like where I taped from, it'd be over here. And these were two weird dark spots. So I'm going to put two 16-inch flakes there. Um, the old LED white Philips 42-inch snowflakes, they are all starting to get brittle. So we donated those to a very good home who has a very nice display. And I'm going to start putting pixels up there. And in fact, I actually already have them there. I just have them deactivated. So I kind of planned out my elements in the future. I have them added to the groups that they're going to need to be added to. So all I have to do is turn them on. as I can afford and find the will to put stuff up. And then these are going to be pixel this year, these two snowflakes. Those are 46 inches. Now, the model itself this year is new. So last year I did not have my 3D model. This is something I really wanted. I even taught a class at the Florida Mega Mini about it, and it's just a really cool thing, and it does wonders for the display. If I go to 3D objects over here and I look underneath, let me look underneath and turn on the ruler. Let me find the ruler. Where'd you go, ruler? It's hidden. Oh, I gotta activate it. All right, now I can see it. See that? So that's my ruler. And what the ruler does for you is you take it and you measure off something specific in your display. In this case, this is my two-car garage door, and I measured that with a measuring tape as 190.75 actual inches, and you get to pick the units. And then what it does is it extrapolates from that value all of the other measurements. So now in my model, all of the snowflakes are to scale, so that if I'm getting this all set up, then it's perfect, right? I really know how these snowflakes are going to fit. And while the house looks symmetrical, this side is actually quite a bit more narrow than this other side. So really made it help. And so to get this model, I used Hover, the Hover application. You download it to your phone, and it basically says go walk around your house and take some pictures of your house. And what it does is it compares the pictures, and then with artificial intelligence, it figures out various points, and then uses that to build a 3D model of your house. And I got the trees around my house, and my neighbors' houses are really close, and I was having trouble getting far enough away to get a picture that was meaningful. And it just wasn't working. And so finally I gave up on it for about a year, and then I came back to it and I said this year I'm gonna try it again, see if it works for me. So I went to the Hover site and it was there. Let's see if I can find Hover. Oh, it's actually something else. Like, it's not hover.com. The Hover app. It's this two thing. Okay. Now, this is made more for real estate agents. Okay. Is this the right password? Maybe. Maybe. Yep. So here it is, and you have your different accounts. And so what I did is I went in and I saw that my house was there. You see, these are the pictures I took, and it figured it all out. And I was looking at it, I was like, and I could see the model here, and I was like, wow, that's great. And so I went to go download it, and what you do is you download it as a .skp file, a SketchUp file, and then you take that file, you download an evaluation copy of SketchUp, and then you load that SketchUp file. You go in and add your material, so the colors and everything are right. And then I also had to add the little front pergola in the front of the house, and then you save it as a .obj file, and then you can pull that into Xlite. So it's a bit tedious. It's kind of a pain. So anyway, I went in here and I went to go get my house, and it said you can't. Okay, because you need an account. So I went and signed up for the pay-as-you-go plan. The other plan is like $250 a month. And it's like, look, I just want to do one house. I don't want to do everybody's house. I just want my house. So I signed up for the pay-as-you-go plan, and then it went, boom, limited access. And it's locked, as you can see. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. So I went and looked at it. It says anything that's over a year, you have to have a professional account, the $250 a month account, in order to access. And it was just barely over a year. So I went down here to the little chat window and I said, please, please. I said, I have a problem. I'm trying, I got the pay as you go and I'm trying to get just this one house. And the lady came back and she said, oh, are you doing this for Christmas lights? And I go, well, in fact, I am doing it for Christmas lights. And she said, oh, okay, I'll just give it to you. And she sent the .skp file. And it sounds like they don't do the SKP file like they used to. You have to ask for it. And she just gave it to me for free. which was super, super nice of her. So took the SKP file, pulled it into SketchUp. I downloaded SketchUp 2021. Let me see if it's still here. SketchUp. And I'm still within my evaluation period for this. Okay. I think I am. I think I am. License template. I don't want to exit. Oh, okay. Well, this is my 2017. Okay, this is the 2017 one. Let me see if I have the 2021 version. Here we go. SketchUp Pro 2021. See, I downloaded the old version. It expired, but then it allowed me to download the new one and start anew. All right. Skip the upgrade. And I'm going to say start modeling. And you see here is the SketchUp file they sent me. And you can kind of see what they did here to extrapolate, to kind of figure out the 3D model of the house, right? So here I can say open file, and let me go and open the file that I had saved. It's thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking. I hope it's going to open. Okay, I'm going to resize this. SketchUp's a great program. They actually do it in schools. Let me resize my window here. I apologize for the snoring, but that's what you get with Frenchies. See, so this is the house in SketchUp. See? And it takes a little getting used to, but it wasn't too hard. In my case, what I had to come in and add is I had to add this pergola up front. For whatever reason, it didn't add it, and it's kind of an important piece of the house there. And then, just trying to navigate. And so I went and put in the windows. I also put in this little thing in the back. But anyway, this is the house. And then you just come up here and you go File, Export, 3D Model, and you save it as a .obj file. Okay. Now, when you go to bring this file in, there's a bunch of things that you need, not just the obj file. Okay. So what I did is under Xlights, I created a directory called My House Arrowwood, and I put all the files that I use in my layout. So I have the skip file here. This isn't used by Xlights, but I have it here for reference. This is what I got back from the hover people. This Arrowwood OBJ file is what was created by the SketchUp program, but it also generates this MTL file, which is the materials list. And then it has all of these different textures that you need, right, that go along with the house. So you need to get those as well. Otherwise, your house comes in kind of looking like multicolor rave. And then, since I also brought in some other things. I have these pictures of the yard, this picture of the plot, this facade, and these are actually there. I just have them turned off, right? So in your model under 3D objects, if I want to see my let's see, where's the front yard? This is fence, grass ball, Plymouth facade. So if I show this, see, this is the actual facade that from the builder's plans, the blueprints. There's the ruler. Let me go turn this off again. Thought I had the yard in here somewhere. Maybe I took it out. There's here it is, front yard. So I can turn on the front yard and see it's right there. Okay, now I don't want to look at that all the time, but when I'm planning, hey, where do the bushes go and where do things go, I can actually drop it right on there and make sure it's right. And then when I'm not using it, turn it off, just like that. And of course, there's the backyard here too, and I didn't have to do that, but you kind of get addicted to this, trying to make it look just perfect. And of course, I put my name and website on the back just for grins. And then they even let you take the plot, and then you can have terrain. And then if you edit the terrain, you can grab any one of these vertices and you can define, the granularity of it. And then you can pull them up and down to kind of match the terrain of your yard. So my house is on a hill. It actually slopes down about 1.5 feet from the garage door to the base. And so if you have a hill, it actually helps out a lot, especially, steep hill. Now, the other thing I did is, and in my display, these my two big trees are a pain in the butt, right? And they block a lot of the house. So I actually created some OBJ files to support the trees. Okay, and also these bushes here. So that, makes it a bit more realistic. And I also, did it for the tiered bushes. So what I did is I created three objects. I created a tree object, a sphere object, and then a square object. And of course, once it's in there, you can stretch them and move them. And for that, I used a free software called Blender. And this is a really good piece of software to also just learn about 3D rendering. All right, so let me move this over here. Of course, I'm opening up all these really intense applications, so we'll see if something just blows up on me here. All right, so this is Blender. And originally I tried to do my whole house in Blender, right? And this is how far I got. And whoops. And and I'm not great at Blender. I watched some tutorials. I got somewhat proficient at it. I got good enough at it that I could do a few things, but just trying to do the whole house, it really wasn't coming together. It wasn't quite, but it worked really good on simple stuff. Whoops. So let me let me find my home directory. So if I go to here and I go to Lightorama AW, even though it's not Lightorama anymore, and I go to my house. Oh, it's looking for blend files. Oh, I don't think I even saved the blend files. Okay, well, either way, it's. Let me just do new and see if I can remember it well enough. I usually have to open up the what do you call it? The tutorial each time. But you have an object, right? And so if I have a square and I can do spheres pretty easy. So you can go down here and add a new object, and you can pick if you want it to be a sphere or a square or a donut, and then you can add vertices, grab the vertices, move them all around. But for what I'm doing, it's pretty easy. And then I come over here and I say, let's see, I want to find materials. See, so I got this as a material, and I pick my color. I say let's make it green because I'm making bushes, right? And make it a darker green color, and voila, I got a bush, just like that. So I do file, and I say save as an OBJ file, 3D, whoops. Oh, it's saving it as a blend, which is what I should have done the first time. Yeah, so file. I did an export. So you do an export as wavefront.obj, and you have voila, you have that sphere. So it's not hard. And this is Blender 279, 2.80 is out, and it of course has a few improvements, but these are very simple objects to create. And if you know how to use a mouse, then watching the tutorial, you'll be able to make these objects in about 10 minutes. And it's really handy, and it kind of adds some effect, because otherwise, if I didn't have these, you would be able to see right through. And when I'm sequencing, it's important not to think I can see right through, because it actually does block the house. So if I'm considering this front view, which a lot of people will see, I have to remember that they can't see this part of the house when when the sequence is firing. So typically I want to do something on the trees at the same time I'm doing something on this side of the house. Okay. Anyway, so we went through, we renamed a bunch of stuff, we got the better models, but here's the problem, right? My old display, all of the models were named one thing, and now I bring them over and they're all named something different, right? So, not being stupid, I created some notes for myself. So, as I'm doing this, I'm going in, this is the old name, this is the new name. See, here I did front bush, back bush, left bush, right bush. And so they'd all be mixed up on that list of models, right? So, I kind of gave them a common naming scheme so that they would just kind of naturally group up together. Oh, presents are still here. I ditched the idea of doing the presents. Okay. Um, and then things that are new, the old name, I just say it's new because there isn't anything for it. Um, and then we have wreaths and so on. So I created these notes as I went, and then you have to be able to. The real trick is to be able to import a sequence. Okay, so let me get my perspectives here. Twitch. That works pretty good, except it doesn't resize the main window. Okay, so then I go and I say, so let's save this. And let's, we're going to basically import a new song. So let me go back to 2020 and let's pick a song to bring over. So I'm going to look for my MP3 files. Oh, let's do this one. This is the caramel dancing thing that Wendy did. Okay, so now I got that directory. Whoops. I'm going to get another one for 2021. Okay, so I come over here, copy, over here, paste. And I don't drag it because it will, oh, it didn't actually copy. Let's try that again. Copy, and come over here, paste. Okay, so the music's over there. If I just drag it across, I know sometimes it will move it. So I'm going to come over here, new sequence. Okay, this is a musical sequence. I will pick the Caramel Dancing song. 40 frames per second. Why? Because we don't want our lights to suck. And I'll just say done. So then I come over here and I say import, or click on import, import effects. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to find the sequence file from last year. Okay, so I go and here's Caramel Dancing. And I believe it is this version here. Okay. So now it's you see here it's saying, okay, here's everything that you have in your current display. And then over here are all of the channels that are in the sequence being imported. Okay? So I created a mapping file that was based on the notes I took, and I saved it as mapping 2020 to 2021. Okay? And just scroll, and I scroll through here to see if there's anything that she's using that didn't map over. Okay. And I might come through and, like the strobes are mapped differently. That'll work out. The big trees, that's a group. I might need to go, and it gives me an idea. I might go back and tweak this a little bit. Type non-white, non-pixel bushes. Okay, so that should be all the little bushes in the yard. Let's see here. Now these ZZZ ones are ones that should not be used. Okay, so she used Eve's. So what will happen? I keep that group there, but ZZZ means don't use it anymore. So after I import it, I'm going to move it to the group where it actually should be. Okay. The strobes, like I said, I'm not worried about. Yard non-pixel. Let's see, yard outline. Yeah, okay, there's a couple in there I need to create. Yard not pixel. Okay, I'll worry about it later. It doesn't matter for this. And I hit OK. Yes. And then you can see it pulled everything in. Okay, and now it's named the new stuff. Now I'm not done yet. There's another important thing to do. If I go up here to display elements, this shows me all of my different views, right? And one of these is a master view. So the master view is created by Xlights, and you really can't touch it, okay? You touch it indirectly. So I created, listen to our lights. This is the intent, is for this to be the master view. I click make master, and what it does is it takes this list of models and groups in this order and turns it into the real master, okay? For this sequence, you have to do this on a sequence by sequence basis, and it's important. And let me explain why. When I set this up, okay, I ordered these models in a very particular way. So I started at the most the most coarse, and I worked down to the more granular. So if I do effect on the whole house or everything, and then I go further down on the list and do trees, it renders from top to bottom. So it'll first render everything on the house, and then it cuts down the trees, and it'll say, "Oh, okay, trees," and it will, override what it was being told to do for the whole from the whole house, and do what's being told for the trees. If it was the reverse order, I do the trees, it does its effect, then it gets the whole house. It will override what the whole house is doing from what the trees were told to do. Okay, so doing it this way, I have more granularity, and it's more of the natural way you would want to sequence. Okay, now the view stuff is a little tricky. I mean, the fact that you can't directly edit the real master or that default is kind of a pain. So you kind of have to watch out for it. So everything is everything. I put strobes here because everything is really everything except strobes, because in everything I'm going to be fading and that sort of thing, and you don't want to fade your strobe lights. Now with pixels, you can use your pixels as strobes, but I still have some AC strobes in the yard, and I don't want to fade them. So those two always be mutually exclusive. So these really, from a hierarchical point of view, are parallel. Then type pixels, that's most of the display. Then non-pixel, again, is hierarchical. These would be parallel because there's pixel and there's non-pixel. Then I have the whole house. Then I have the icicles. Then I have snowflakes and wreaths. And I have the different zones of the house. Now, one of the things that's tricky with my house, since I do a lot of the snowflakes, is I have these abbreviations for the house. So what I did is I created a little cheat sheet here, and I have another version that I included for 2020, but for 2021, when I post the sequences, in the zip file, I'll include a graphic of this layout guide, or I might actually go and just add it to the house model, right? So people can go in there and see it. And so in my model, I say SF means snowflakes, SFW means snowflakes and wreaths. G1 is the first car garage, G2 is the two-car garage, T1 is the left side of my house, T3 is the right, and T2 is the middle, right? I forget why I call them T1, T2, and T3, but this actually is a carryover from my original house. Then all the group names start with an underscore. Okay, so if it starts with an underscore, that means it's a group. If the name starts with an equal sign, that means it's a group of a group. And what does that mean? A group is a group of models, right? So a group of models would be, okay, T1 has all of these snowflakes and these icicle lights, and that's a group. A group of groups would be if I had a model that was, or a group that was the house, and instead of including each individual model, I just included that T1 group and that T2 group. And they tell you not to do it, but it's actually a useful thing. So if I want to say treat each one of these groups as a single pixel, right, and have them flash and do something, I can use the group of groups to do that, and it will render those items. So it doesn't actually see the individual models, it sees that group as a model, which is sometimes useful to do. And I point out things like I'm calling these side trees, these are the tiered bushes, this is where the cactus is because he's hard to see now, the mega trees, the tree line, and so on. So just to make it easier for people to pull in. And also, it's some notes for my kids, so if they're doing any sequences, they know that. Like, also telling them if you're going to sequence a song with my layout, don't use any group that starts with ZZZ. So if it's underscore ZZZ, that means it's deprecated, and we're trying to get away from it. And also, once you have the sequence created, switch to listen to lights as our master view. So that helps out with that portion of it. That makes it easy. So let me point out some other things that are new. And I'm loving the 3D model. I mean, I don't know how much it helps, but man, it does look really nice, and it's a lot of fun to play with. Um, it's a big leap over last year's. And the thing that took me a while is when I was doing the layout, I was having a lot of problems with X-Lights, and it turned out that there were some bugs in the very first version of X-Lights this year that was causing me some problems. So I reverted back to a previous version from late last year, and it cleared it all up. And I filed a bug, and Keith has already fixed it, and he has the new version out. So I need to go download the new version and try it out. But typically, once I get to the point where we're only a couple of months away from Christmas, I will stop upgrading. Right, usually around August September timeframe, I'll settle on a stable version of Ecoslights, and I'll stop upgrading because it's not uncommon to get bugs. So just a good example, I had a buddy on the other side of town. He was doing his big light kickoff, right? And he downloaded the new version of X Lights that day. And then in the evening, he's trying to get his show to kick off. He's using X Scheduler, and he's having a horrible time. He can't create a playlist to kick his show off because, you'd be surprised. You do all this work on sequencing, but when it actually comes time to set up the show, you don't really think of it until it's time for the show to kick off. So literally, a little bit before the show, he's having troubles kicking this off. So we're up there trying to, working on his PC, trying to figure it out. And sure enough, it turned out there was a bug in X Lights, the version that was released that day or the day before, where you couldn't create a playlist, and you'll drive yourself nuts. So, you know, you kind of have to balance your, where are you at in planning out your display versus your tolerance for pain and suffering. And if you're in the middle of your show running every night, you don't want to cause yourself any problems, so you hold off. But anyway, and then the other thing is that I was struggling with the master view, right, in the display elements, and with that I learned a really important lesson. And by the way, if you guys know Clyde Lindsay is one of the sweetest, nicest people out there, and he really knows this stuff. He's a pro. He's been using X Lights from the very beginning. He's been doing pixels and RGB from the very beginning. And he does this professionally now. So he eats and lives and breathes this stuff, and Clyde does great work. Um, and so I got on the phone. Clyde offered to talk me through it, and he was like, "Yeah, this is really weird. It shouldn't be working like that." And what had happened is, we kind of just stepped back a little bit and said, "Let's just do one thing at a time." And what I was doing is, I was updating my layout at the same time I was updating my display elements for that view. And you shouldn't do that. If you're going to be messing around with your layout and changing the names and that sort of thing, just make sure you close out any sequences and do one thing at a time. Because X-Lights is great software, and they do a great job on it, but it has a very small user base. And so there are bugs there, and people find bugs all the time, and they deal with them, right? But, you don't want to give it any unnecessary bumps. And, what I was doing is I was doing two things at once. And when you do that, you're more likely to expose bugs that people don't normally run into. But anyway, we got it. It's all working, and I have my little layout map, so I go from last year to this year. And as you saw, I got a couple tweaks to do there. But, it makes pulling in the sequences a lot easier. The other thing I try to do as well is I try to program in groups. So if I'm looking at my layout, I very rarely will step into programming on a model by model basis. I'll always do it in a group. And the reason why that is really useful is that if, let's say, this is my T1 group up here on the left side of the house, if I have all of these snowflakes doing a spinner, for example, and then the following year I add a few snowflakes, which I'm doing, all I have to do is add the new snowflakes to the group, hit the re-render button right here, the little palette button, and boom, it takes care of it. It's done, right? And it works really, really well. And that so I there's really no rework that you have to do. Like I remember in the Light Rama days, each year you would have to spend a few hours, well, not a few hours, several hours, because you had to take each sequence and adapt it to the new configuration, right? And Xlights makes that a lot easier. If you're programming in groups, you just need to re-render. Now, if you're adding a whole new element, yeah, you're going to have to do a little bit of work. But for something where it's like, look, I have a group of snowflakes and I'm just adding more snowflakes, right? You don't want to have to do a lot more, and Xlights really helps out with that. So, big, big fan of that. Um, let's see what else to say about the layout. Well, let me go through what else is new. I talked about the tiered bushes. We're adding additional snowflakes. And also, some of the snowflakes, like, this one last year was a 24 incher. And then when I was looking at the house, it's like, oh, we can fit a bigger one in there. We can fit a bigger one here. We can sneak another snowflake right here. This is my far left snowflake. It just, tucks in there real nice. And then over here, there was room for two 12 inchers, so we dropped those in there. But let me go back to my notes. I keep a lot of notes just because it's easy, right? This is my plot plan, my Google Earth, front yard. This is my power management scheme for this year. So basically, I'm assuming that I'm using 0.045 amps per pixel. I'm going to use 30% brightness. And, based on the specs for the mean well, I came out with a power injection scheme for 650, which is what I'm going to have as my max runs for this year. And so that kind of defines my power injection strategy. Um, then this is my power map from last year, how I actually had stuff plugged in. And here's what I'm looking at for this year. So here I snuck in a snowflake there. This one's bigger. The two on the roof are 46 inches. Nothing changed here. I actually changed this one on the fly in 2020 when I was putting up the lights. It's like, ooh, I could squeeze in another snowflake. So I just squeezed one in. And then X Lights, like I said, I added it to the G2 group for the second two-car garage, and it just took care of it. So it was super easy. Try doing that with Lightorama. Here I've added a few more snowflakes. I've added a lot more snowflakes here, 8 more. So I'm trying to get, the higher density. And, matrices are fine. And I know a lot of people like them. I personally don't like matrices on the house. For It's my personal preference. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get really good coverage on the house, but I'm doing it by just adding snowflakes. And the idea is that people's minds can fill in the blanks. So I noticed there were gaps here for more snowflakes, so added a bunch more snowflakes. So there's 8 more going up just in the middle section. And there was room over by the door, and there's a few here. Now the arrows here are my runs. So when I added more snowflakes, what I'm doing is I'm actually figuring out how many pixels are each of these runs, because my rule is no more than 650 on a run, because I want to maintain the 40 frames per second, which you can go up to 680, but given that lights come in 50s, that's kind of where I made my rule of thumb. And plus, it gives me a bit of a buffer power wise at the 30% brightness. So these are my runs. So when I was in Xlights, what I do is I set up all my models, and then I went over to my controllers and I changed them a lot. So if I go to visualize, you can see that I just dragged them from this side and dropped them onto a port. And so I can actually see which snowflakes go with what, and I can see per port how many pixels per port. I can see if I'm within my own guidelines, and I can see if I'm running out of ports or not. So it's really, really easy. And then of course I come back to my notes just to make sure that I got it right. Here's my plan for the tiered trees, and I think we actually did a streaming on planning this out. And here I'm starting to work up my order of pixels for this year. So, typically this is the time right now to be planning out your display for next year, right? Oh, we got D. Kelly 802. Hey, thanks for joining. We got 4 viewers. That's great. I really do appreciate you folks signing in. I do feel a little silly talking to myself, but I do this stuff because I like it, and I would be doing it this morning anyway. But this is the time to be planning out your display for next year. right? Why? Because right now it's Chinese New Year, and after Chinese New Year is when the vendors are usually in the best position to take new orders, and of course there are pre-sales and all of that. I like ordering from direct from China. I find that I get some good deals. I've established some good relationships with some vendors. I really like Paul Zhang. Paul Zhang is amazing. So I was using Holiday Coral, and people rag on Holiday Coral with good reason. Okay, I mean David Moore knows what he's doing. He's a great guy, right? And he does some great stuff. But some people are not huge fans of his business practices. But I'm not here to rip on anybody or promote any particular vendor. But the point is that places like Holiday Coral are doing pre-sales, DIY Express, RGB Man, and they buy from China, right? And then they resell it. I like going through Paul Zhang because I can get things custom made. Like for example, if I have a 48 node snowflake and I got a 50 string of lights, I don't worry about it. I take two of the lights and I black them out with the liquid tape, which smells awesome. That's always a fun afternoon. But if I have like a 36 node snowflake, I don't want to waste all those pixels, and I don't want to cut off the ends and resolder the ends on because I value my time more than that. And also, I do okay soldering, but I'm not the very best at it. And I like it being machine made because I feel like it's a little bit more weather resistant. So, anyway, I will go to Paul and I said, Paul, I want so many strings of 36, and I want them to be on white wire with X connector ends or whatever kind of ends you want. And he makes them. And when I order from Paul, I usually get my order way before the people that are getting their pre-sale orders because, there's an extra middleman. But with that extra middleman, well, now you have somebody in the U.S. you can contact to complain. If I have a problem with Paul, well, guess what? He's in Sichuan, China. There's nothing I can do about it. Except give him a bad name, which I wouldn't do anyway because usually it's not these people's fault or whatever. But yeah, but you don't have a lot of recourse. So you got to do what you're comfortable with, right? If you like having somebody that you can pick up the phone and call if you have a problem, then going through a US reseller is a great idea. And there's a lot of good ones. And if you go onto the Facebook pages, they'll set you up. But if you want to go with China, then you want to go with somebody who's known. Ray Wu is known. I would look up, people's recent histories, of course, to see how it's going. Paul Zhang is another one. I think Daniel Zhang is another that people use. Um, but if you're going off of like Amazon or looking for Christmas lights on Amazon, it's kind of like looking for a date on Craigslist, right? Yeah, you're gonna get some pixels, but you might get something extra for it too. Um, you want to do your homework on the reseller. Another cool thing I want to do this year, and Eric Schultz is going to hook me up today with a transmitter and some samples, which is super nice of him. One of the things I'm going to do because I don't know if anybody remember I did I hacked the IR codes for the Mickey Mouse ears. If you go to Disneyland and you listen to their World of Color show, everybody wears these. Well, not everybody, but people who like lights wear the Mickey Mouse ears, and they glow with the show. Yes, Daniel Zhang. Uh, you if you the ears on the hats will change with the show, and it was really really cool and I loved it. So somebody actually went out there with an IR sniffer, and I bought one off on Amazon, and it's really easy, and it's just a little USB thing, and you go out there and you just hold it up, and what it does is it captures all of the infrared signals that are flying around in the air, and basically it converts it to hex, which is basically a binary representation. And so on one of the forums, people had dumped these great big binary files and said, okay, now let's figure it out. And so um, I do a lot of stuff like this at work. And so basically sat down and figured out the protocol for the Mickey Mouse lights, and it was a lot of fun. I wasted a month or two on this, but first of all, we found out there was really two different things going on. So very quickly, we found the closed captioning stuff because that also uses infrared, and we could see all of the closed captions that were going along with the show, and that alone was really cool. But then with the lights, what they did is they had these little packets, and there was a certain value that would tell you, hey, this is the beginning of a packet, and then they would have a command and then an instruction. right? And so it would be like, turn on flashing, turn on red, and you would combine these different things to make an effect. The tricky part was is they would take that entire command and then they did it against a CR. They put it through a CRC check and put it at the end, which made it impossible to just decode straight without doing the decoding. So once we figured out the CRC, and I think it was a simple CRC 16, and or was it a polynomial? I forget which, but it didn't. It only took 4 or 5 tries to guess the right one, and boom, we had the whole protocol. And then it was just a matter of flipping bits. And it's like, oh, I flipped this bit, I get green. Oh, I flipped this bit, it started flashing or pulsing or whatever, and we had it down. And I actually wrote a little script that you can run. You can kick off with the lightorama, and it will make the ears go with the show. So we had it all figured out. But then here's the problem: if you have a remote control, you know that that remote control only works from so far away. And it doesn't have a real good spread either. And if that IR emitter isn't pointed right at it, it's going to miss command. So it, by its very nature, was really, really glitchy. So anyway, that's a long way to get to this point. But anyway, now they have these transmitters that connect to bracelets and other things, and so Eric is going to let me borrow his transmitter and a couple of bracelets just to get it up and running. And it's a five. It looks like it's a 5 channel transmitter. It just sits on a DMX chain, so on a Falcon controller that would hook up to one of your serial ports like a Lightorama would or another DMX device. And two of the channels are there. I believe one of them is to turn the thing on and off. The other one I don't know what is for yet. And then the other three are red, green, and blue. And so what you can do is, as your show is playing, you can say, and this is what color I want the bracelets to be as the show's going. And then you can pass out bracelets. Now, this works really well for my show because in non-COVID years, what we do is, on the weekends, we set up chairs out front. All the neighbors come out with their camp chairs. They sit up in front of the neighborhood, and we all go out there and we experience the lights together, right? So we just kind of unofficially shut the street down. The kids all run around, play, dance in the street. We sit out there with our chairs. Everybody brings their own beverages and snacks. And we hang out as a neighborhood, as a community. And it's really nice, right? And it'd be really fun to be able to pass out, the bracelets to people. Now, Eric has been so gracious. He actually, because I said, hey, I want to borrow this. I said, but I was going to order some samples. And I'm still going to order some samples. But I told him, he said, oh, you can borrow some bracelets. I said, now you know that I'm planning on taking a knife and like dissecting these bracelets because I'm going to want to try to retrofit my IR Mickey Mouse ears to be RF Mickey Mouse ears. So they're using radio instead of infrared. Radio is actually super effective. And so he's like, that's fine. You can chop one up. So obviously when I order my batch, I'm going to make sure he gets his bracelet back just for being a nice guy. And he's great. He's just a few miles from here, so super handy. Really looking forward to meeting him. But anyway, I think that's another way to make the show interactive. That's something we're looking at doing. The other thing looking to do this year is the yard outlines. Going to do those in pixels, and I really like to do it in C9. So I'm trying to figure out a strategy to do that. My family hates putting the lawn stakes in, and because the ground gets really hard. And this year we actually went out there with a drill and drilled the hole for each one of the lawn stakes into the dirt. Yeah, it cost me a drill bit, but it made it a lot easier. But the ground was super, super hard, so it's really, something we don't look forward to. So I'm going to try to do it in long strips of PVC or EMT to, drop the pixels in long strips, and also keep them perfectly straight, which it kind of gives it a nice clean look. Also, we're going to come back to the big trees. We want to have something along the top of the big trees that are going to allow us to hang those strips. This year, we got it up there, but we had some problems. We had a trip to the ER and stuff like that. And so we compromised on how we did the strips. And literally, I just hung the strips in the trees and let them drape down. And while it looked okay, I really didn't like how choppy it looked. Okay, so 2020, it was a little off. If I get these to be nice and perfectly straight, I think I know the effect will be a lot better. So we're looking forward to that. And I was thinking about doing these presents in the front yard. So I have some presents over by the deer, and we got these. And I found these on Gilbert Engineering, and the big one is 2,500 pixels, right? Just to put that in perspective, my tree line is a lot less than that. Alexa, what's 13 times 125?
13 times 125 is
Right.
1,625.
So my whole tree line is 1,600 pixels, and this is 2,500. The little one is 900 pixels, and I thought this would be nice, and I figured I could use this to double as a Tune 2 sign, because my Tune 2 sign is really old and ghetto now. It's just reflective letters, on basically a yard sale sign. I figure this would make a good Tune 2 sign, but I'm a little hesitant because, they don't. While they're nice and square, they don't really look like presents. You need a ribbon, and like what they say in Arthur Christmas, always time for a bow, and there's no bow. So I need to think about it. Maybe it would be cool to use like some like that flexible RGB stuff, people kind of stuff that people put around the hats, as a ribbon, but that's obviously not waterproof at all. So I'm going to hold off on the presents, but I stuck it under ideas for now. The other thing I want to do is I still have this 96-inch snowflake sitting in the corner. And one of my ideas for this is I'm thinking about eventually putting four of these on the top roof. But that's going to require some serious engineering because I mean, first of all, you got to get the power up there. You actually have to figure out how I'm going to install these, right? They're not going to be light, and they're going to be bulky, and they're going to be flimsy at the same time. And then when we get pretty good winds in December, and I don't want them to blow off the roof and decapitate neighbors or anything, so it needs to be safe first and foremost. So those we're holding off on. Yeah, but those are the plans. So my point here is that right now is the season where I mean, now that you've taken down your display, not everybody has, but most people have, your display is down, it's all tucked away. Now's the time to be planning out for next year, right? And once you're done planning out for next year, then you kind of start in on repairs from stuff that broke. So I got a couple snowflakes that need fixing. I got one pixel that went out on a strip that needs to be replaced. But for the most part, I save that until I get done with planning for next year. And of course, the other thing to remember is to always sequence all through the year because that takes quite a while. But that's kind of the milestone that we're at. And then props, you typically want to be done building your props by sometime in the summer, July, August timeframe, because really in September, especially for people that are doing Halloween, you need to get started on setup. Um, and of course, I put some time out in that time frame as well to test all of the runs together. I will use the exact cables and the exact snowflake and the exact power injection tees with the controller, with the power injection box for each and every run to make sure that these guys work together. So anyway, again, this wasn't a scheduled session. The whole point of this is, we wanted to kind of give an overview of the layout. We also wanted to, talk about what we were planning on for next year, and tomorrow we'll do some more sequencing. The "You'll Be Back" song is starting to get a little old, but that's kind of how it gets with sequencing. It really tests your resolve to finishing off a song. But like I said before, yesterday I was working on some effects that I would like to see in the song, and I'm hoping to make the sequencing sessions a bit more interesting. I know those can get a little bit dry, so we're trying to keep it fun. Bear with me. I'm trying to channel my inner Bob Russ. It's like, oh, we made a mistake. We'll turn these the mistakes into birds, right? That kind of stuff. But we're trying to keep it entertaining. And but this is kind of a good intro. So as I'm sequencing, I think this kind of helps people kind of understand, the groups and how they relate back, and also some of the challenges that you can face when you go from one year to the next, and then some things that you can do to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Again, this isn't really meant to be so much a tutorial, more as a, hey, if you kind of swung by my house and you're hanging out, and you're sitting right here, what would we talk about? This is the kind of stuff we'd be talking about. So, um, I really appreciate you folks tuning in. Again, we're doing this just because, we get a little bored and lonely during COVID. Not that I don't have a lot of family, but, I got, you know, uh, don't get to meet a lot of people outside the family these days. So, I wanted to do something to be interactive. And I looked at doing the how to videos again, but, I look at what people are doing, and there's people that are doing such a great job with it, and it's been done. I figure, let's do something fun. We'll do something like a sequence with me thing. But anyway, but some of this stuff where I'm not actually including IP music, this is stuff I can save off so people can come back and look later. And so we got people that are chatting. So we got Redon Jamin, Red Don Jamin, and D Kelly. Appreciate the you guys chatting away, and thank you for following. I appreciate it. And yo, wow, you've even been around since Light of Rama Day, so you probably see me start a couple of fires over time. But I'm learning as I go. By far I am not the world authority on X lights or any of these different items, and there a lot of these things go really deep, like FPP and so on. I kind of like to take it from the perspective of how do we hook all of this stuff up together, and then if somebody really needs deep details on one specific thing, then there are tons of places that people can go out. And oh wow, Mr. Prowler is going to have 100 panels for your front door. So I take it these are like P4, P5. I mean like P5, P10 panels. That is cool. One thing I wanted to do P5 panels on, and I haven't quite had the balls to do it yet, is to do on the doors, do rows of P5 panels in between the cracks. I'd love to do something on the garage doors. The problem is it rains here, and I don't want to destroy the P5 panels. And I need to be able to use the garage. I actually have 3 cars. We really do use our garage. I think we're the only people in Texas that keep cars in our garage, but regardless, that's important to us. And I measured it, and I have a conservative inch and a half of clearance from the face of the garage door as the garage door is opening. So I really want to do that, and I figure at the base I could run cables under the base to items on the other side of the garage door. My garage doors are wood, so I would need to drill screws in to keep things in place. But on the back side, it's metal, and I could use magnets. So don't forget about magnets as a good fastener. I have I got a 300-pound magnet for Christmas, and you slap that thing on the garage. I mean, on the refrigerator door, and you almost gotta like pull the metal off to get the thing off. So, like on the little roof here, this is a metal roof, and I have controllers that go up there, and I just use magnets rated for 60 pounds, and it works great. So, yeah, and I've even looked at some things where, like, when the garage door goes up, like this, when it gets to the top, having it connect with a connector, or by the time it gets down, having it connect with a connector to get its power and data. I figure I could use wireless to get to that. I don't want to use a lot of wireless in the display because if you overdo it, you'll have problems. One of the guys on Great Christmas Light Fight the other year, I think it was, you go back and watch, and he was using the wireless sticks for everything in his display. He gave every prop a wireless stick, and if you watch, you'll notice that his display, they never really showed it running with the music. And the reason is he was having terrible time with bandwidth issues because of all the Wi-Fi devices. And you got to remember that Wi-Fi, if you're sending Wi-Fi to the router, I mean to the controller, which some people do, and then you do Wi-Fi from there to the props, you know, you're not just adding to the bandwidth demand or load, you're multiplying it. And you can easily run out of bandwidth. So you need to plan it. But if you do it in certain locations, it works good. Now, the other thing is that with an FM transmitter and maybe this wireless transmitter for the bracelets, that also uses up the energy in the air, and that can interfere with different things too. So you got to look at the frequencies. In fact, I hear the little bracelet thing makes it so key fobs don't work. So if somebody turns off their car and tries to start it with a key fob, the car won't work, and that'll be fun problem to work around. But anyway, that's what we're looking at. And this is great stuff. It's a lot of fun, and this is just meant to be a chat. And I appreciate people tuning in. It's a lot of fun, and we'll see where it goes. So we'll wrap it up for today. Tomorrow at 1:30 Central Time, we are going to be back to sequencing, and of course the session after that will be on Thursday, and we're going to try to get the "You'll Be Back" song wrapped up in the next 2 or 3 sessions, and then move to go do a song that's more Christmassy. But you got to get that "You'll Be Back" song out of my head, so I figure sequencing is a good way to do it. So hopefully see some of you back tomorrow, and thanks for tuning in. And we'll go ahead and we'll end it.